Thank you for being here. My apologies already for this is going to be a kind of emergency substitution talk, but it's actually great because then I can do whatever I want. I mean, no excuses. I can, everything is allowed, and you can blame it on Matthias, no problem. So this is already something. I need help for somebody clicking now. Okay, well, no, just or it happened or it was somebody. So, magic. Anyway, the reason, the driver was something that I had in mind, and something that really pops out all of the way. It was basically the same idea that was even behind Eric Evans' talk at last DDD Denver conference. It's like, we're having a lot of DDD conference right now. And well, DDD was actually born something like, the original idea was around the year 2000. The book came out 4 years later, in 2004. And now, in 2016, 17, we are seeing something like the boom of DDD conference. So, well, this is basically whiskey. And just the idea is you just put it in barrel, let it, season over there, and then becomes better and better. Still, there's something weird about the reason why it is happening. The other driver is we still have no clear idea what domain-driven design is, and I wanted to dig a little bit better because the original thing, the blue book, the Bible, is it's still the blue book and it's still the Bible, but DDD is something different right now. So I wanted to see that too. And since I have time, I would like to start from my dinosaurs and ask a very. So what is software development? In quite a few workshops that I run is a question that I ask to all developers to try to understand what is their vision about software development, what is their vision of their profession. And one of the typical answer is in this area. We are just builders, we are carpenters, we are engineers, we build bridges, we build houses. And there's something true in this metaphor. Because of this, you look at this teamwork, just people doing things together. You see it growing. There's something really rewarding in the profession of software development, which is the idea of seeing something that was not there, and then it's there. It is working, it's solving somebody's problem. And it's great to do it with your friends, teammates. It's just a good feeling. I like it. I'm sorry, I'm kind of ignoring people on this side. But I still don't like this metaphor that much. There's something missing. Like the other picture I was finding yesterday, like it doesn't really feel like that. I mean, oh yes, we are building a house. Yes, so sweet. No, it feels like phony. Well, this is clearly phony as a picture. And I was actually building my wife and my house with my wife, and that was not exactly the feeling. It was just I like this color. No, I like this color best. This type of thing. Not really that thing. But this is probably the thing. It's just you build a house, and it's going to stay like this. And then you get in a profession like ours, just like, brew, upgrade, or install new bricks. And then, the bricks are not compatible with the windows. Oh, shit, what happens? I thought the project was finished. And no, it doesn't really work like this. The house is made to last, which is great. The house is meant to more or less stay. You know, even architects are saying like, the house is actually slowly evolving. It is not. It's not really evolving. It's just getting, you just repaint it sometimes, but you never really make big stuff because you built it and you know how hard it is, so you don't want to change it. Really, I don't think that's the right metaphor. Still, there is something good. The rewarding feeling of building it. This phony image might even be true sometimes. Another common idea is we are translating requirements into working software. I don't know where this idea exactly came from, but I think it has something even more evil behind it. Well, there was something So the feeling when reading this, just like software developers are just, waiting for the benevolent wisdom of the domain expert to display in front of us. And yes, this is our eternal gratitude. Thank you for giving us the knowledge needed to translate your wisdom into working software. Really sounds like crap to me. I don't think that's the story. Why is that? Basically, because if we are writing enterprise software, we're having this problem. The company is organized in silos, and it's normal. It's just about people specialization. I'm not blaming the silos. They are a natural reaction to growing complexity. But one of the things which is really relevant is the fact that the underlying, I guess that's going to be the next slide. Still, I don't see it. The underlying knowledge, well, no, so that was that slide. So I killed my joke. The idea is if you have two people like this, you just add a translator, things are going to be solved. I don't think so. I don't really think you just need a translator in the middle and just let the two guys talk. And little problem happens, like thermonuclear war. I'm pretty sure both guys will be blaming the translator, which means you. Now, the real thing is the knowledge distribution inside a company organized in silos is going to be more or less like this. It's not a single unified wisdom. I mean, the dirty secret is in even established companies, people don't really know their job very well. They know their little portion. They know exactly what happens in their daily job. They know their silos, but they don't know everything. Developers don't know what happens in the accounting department, and will never do probably. And clearly, accounting don't have any idea what happens inside the operations team or DevOps or whatever. We are specialized. There's something other people don't know. Pretending just to translate inconsistent knowledge into working software it's just stupid. It's not going to happen. So I would say the fundamental truth underlying everything is: does anybody remembers who's the author of this sentence?
Dr. House.
Yes, that's a man. That's exactly the gratitude and all the wisdom is actually going to this guy. He's just telling us that with the best intentions, people are not telling the truth. I remember it was actually my first project. I was still studying at the university and getting some extra money, doing a little consultancy, writing some. Well, actually, it was a price comparator at that time, but it was written in Microsoft Access. And I was kind of done at the end, and my customer, who was actually a friend, just the last day said, well, there's just one little requirement that I need to add on top of the list, which is, you're going to have multiple users. I just didn't tell you at the very beginning, not to scare you. And everything was developed in Microsoft Access because that was the idea. Okay, multiple users, Microsoft Access. No, why didn't you tell me? Oh, I just didn't want to make things too complicated. Well, thank you. Thank you. I'm still grateful. Yeah. So people are not bad, but they will lie to you. You cannot just translate something into requirements, and this clearly didn't work from the beginning. It didn't work with the model-driven architecture. It doesn't work when people are just thinking tools like Cucumber are just for letting domain expert write the specification, and then magically we are going to be translators and try to work on that. No, it's not happening. This wisdom is too fragmented, inconsistent to be just translated. Our work is different. Enterprise software development is a continuous work of discovery, challenge, and investigation. I don't trust the people I'm talking to. I don't think they're bad. I just don't trust their words. I don't think they're telling me the whole truth. People are lying with the best intention. So that's cut and paste for all of my other talks, but it's part of the game. So new country, I need to make it explicit. It's just software development is mostly a learning process, and we focus on the working code as a side effect, which is actually apparently obvious. It just fits perfectly the builder metaphor. Wow, how many stories this building is done? How close are you to the end? Well, if you're just building it incrementally, you can see it. It's great. It's visible. The progression is giving us good expectation, while our learning is not visible. But I would say thinking only about the deliverable is not really working. It's just like trying to lose weight, only focusing on weight. It's just like, well, I'm a little bit overweight, so I should be losing some kilos. Actually, my mother told me, like, oh, you're just too fat. Thank you. You should, I think you should lose 20 kilos. Oh, yes, great. What's the fastest way to lose 20 kilos? Well, I'm just going to cut my leg, and that's going to be quick. If I just focus on the weight, that's the best solution. Well, it's going to make my life harder, but at least I keep my mother happy for this. And you need to provide some satisfaction some days. But no, you don't focus on the weight in order to lose weight. You focus on your lifestyle. You focus on doing some sports. You focus on your eating habits, and that's the thing. And the weight is the result. That's the same with working code. Just this is the end step of a more complicated process, which is mostly learning, challenging requirements, making discoveries. Second ingredient, this is specific to domain-driven design and not to software development in general, which is not all software development is the same. The whole idea of core domain. I've been digging around the core domain ideas for many years, and then there's something which is fundamentally interesting here, and it was not so well clarified. This is, I deliver software without understanding. You can actually buy this T-shirt. I made it public, so if you want, that might be a good companion to the conference T-shirt. This was the reason why domain-driven design was started. This was exactly the feeling that Eric Evans had when he said, like, I see most of the bright people focusing on the technology, and nobody is taking care of understanding what is the problem that we're solving. It's more or less the same feelings I had. And then I was into the bandwagon of consulting for enterprise development, and you see this dozen of contractors, developers, writing software to finish the project on time, on budget, deliver it to the customer, and then vanish. Not being able to see any good result of their job. Just, it's delivered. My job is over. Oh, yes. Then somebody else is just still doing the cleanup, all this stuff. But delivery without understanding, I think is a pretty dumb idea. But on the other side, I have to admit that this is a dominant pattern in enterprise software development. It's what happens 90% of the time. And even a little bit more into the renting, if you're working in the core domain, this approach is not going to work. Is delivery without understanding in the core domain, it's just exactly like cutting a leg. It's just suicidal. You're just solving a problem, creating a bigger one. And, I actually see many companies now that have exactly this problem. Their software has been delivered by people that didn't really understand the problem. Great. And the strategies might be different. In a non-core environment, think like, compliance stuff, new European regulation. There's something that you have to do. Everybody's going to say it's critical. It's critical is just a way to motivate us, to make us feel like we're doing something important. Everything is critical for somebody else, but it's not exactly the whole story. If you're doing something like compliance for European regulation, the thing is, if you're doing good enough, or if you're doing it fantastically well, it's not going to change anything. Your company is not going to make a penny more if your compliance is implemented in the right way. So you will hit the gold plating point. And what is the, pretty soon, what is the strategy in a not so critical, despite what everybody's saying, type of project? You just do the pseudo-agile, you do the iteration, the tracking, the story points, all the boring things. In practice, you will just follow the backlog. You just take the old RUP and just shrink the things in order to reduce risk. There's still something good. It's just a strategy for risk management, but it's not going to grant you any fantastic result, even because it is sad to say results here are not changing things that much. So maybe it's good for maintenance. Maybe it's good for your own self-esteem. Oh, we just had 100% code coverage. We did clean coding in there. That is great. But business-wise, that piece of software done good enough, done perfectly, won't make that much of a difference. And unfortunately, this approach is not working in the core. What is the problem? The problem is most of the companies are actually optimized for that approach. Oh, well, refactoring story. Oh, yes, just put it in the backlog. Boom. We still want to do a little bit of refactoring. We really need refactoring. Yes, just put it in the backlog. And then, boom, again, the priority goes down. I don't know, it looks like it's titanium in refactoring. The moment you ask your product owner, we need to do some refactoring, we have this feature first, and then there's always somebody else first. It actually doesn't really work. And maybe, in some cases, maybe they are right. It's not worth the effort. What do you need to maintain it? Of course, it's your problem versus their problem, and then it's always, you're just buying shares of the future blame, but that's another story. Again, this guy. The thing is, if you are in the core, if you're working for some problem which is not exactly the same problem that everybody else has, that is where the standard solution might have. But if you have a problem which is specific to you, specific to your company, to your business approach, then the standard solution might not work. Then you need to deal the way Dr. House is doing. Like you have a flu, you take an aspirin. Dr. House doesn't treat the flu. I mean, you don't go to Dr. House for the flu. You go to Dr. House only for problems which are really, really hard to diagnose. And then you have a completely different strategy here. You just, you make experiments. You investigate. You try many things, sometimes even dangerous. Let's see how the patient is going to die in order to understand what is the disease. But it is just a different approach. This is also a place where you don't ask Dr. House estimates. It just don't. I'm focusing, I'm trying to save your lives. I'm working on the most important problem for your company. Common strategies, follow the rules, don't work here. We followed the rules, didn't work. We are stuck here. The company is just not profitable enough, not efficient enough. We need to do something different, and the standard approach didn't work. So this starts to be a little bit more a definition of what is our territory. This is where we need to do something different, and traditional approaches don't work. They focus on delivery. We need to focus on exploration, learning, and clear understanding of the domain. In the code domain, there is no such thing as gold plating. Every refinement we apply to the code domain is actually gold making. That's the difference. And it depends a lot on where you are. I have this soccer metaphor. I mean, if you are a defender and, well, the ball is coming and you just, okay, let's do that. The whole crowd is going to tell you that you are an idiot. You don't do this when you're defending. If you are attacking and if you do this and it works, you are a hero. I mean, you're the same soccer player. It's just different location on the field. You don't make experiments when you are a defender. You can make experiments when you are an attacker. Completely different style. If everybody's playing defense, you won't make great ideas or great goals, or you won't make it to the highlights. End of the story. So the idea here is domain-driven design is an evolutionary software approach. It's for software that can't be done right at first attempt, for non-trivial software, non-trivial problem. By the way, this is also the reason why there was this obsession with software architecture, because in 2004, the only available architecture for delivering this type of result was the one that was highlighted in the Blue Book. We made an experiment with that. We tried with the team just trying to write good software without any hint about what domain-driven design was. The need of testability that was necessary for continuous evolution of the software, because we were describing new things, was slowly making exactly the DDD structure emerging from traditional object-oriented code. We needed those repositories, transaction management in a more sophisticated way. We needed factories. We needed value objects just because they made the software more safer to play with, because we needed to open, rewrite it, evolve it, add more stuff, and the software didn't have to collapse all the time. When the software was safe, we started making more and more experiments. We started changing it, adding more features, and this was a game changer. So safety, in this case, was one of the key ingredients. The places where this is necessary, one, too complex to be understood without experimenting. Well, you just read the specification. They are long, you just read all of them. My take, this is not going to work. You need to make experiments. You need to try. You need to make your homework. You need to get to the right model by a path of continuous approximation, even if you have good specification. It's about the learning process. People need to get there, and they can't get there in one single shot. So it's part of the problem. Second condition is the problem is continuously evolving. This is exactly the ecosystem for startups. You try, you jump on the market, you have, maybe a prototype solution, the smallest for the MVP, and then you start chasing, pivoting, evolving, learning new things, following new business opportunities. And you can only do that if you have a very good understanding of the domain and a very good architecture able to help you in the process. So one of the key activities in domain-driven design is the obsession with the right model, with the understanding of the problem. Let me make it more visible. This is the metaphor I use in many of my training classes. And the idea is not exactly for the dog fighting. It's just like, this is what I think the business problem. This is what we are trying to get. And in order to chase the enemy aircraft, you have to put these two aims here. Okay, the laser is working. These two aims align with the enemy aircraft. One is my representation of this is our understanding of the problem. Doesn't mean that we are done. It means like we are getting there step by step. The other is our implementation. The moment our understanding and our implementation are close together and close to the business problem, this is exactly where we can fire the missile. This is exactly where we can follow the aircraft trying to evade. That's basically our job. So if you can keep the three things, the real problem, our understanding, and our implementation close, then that's the only slide I remember without looking, then it's kind of an easy job, Top Gun stuff. That's exactly what I want to do. Apparently it's easy. I mean, nobody wants to understand the problem domain wrong, and nobody wants to write software which is different from their own understanding. But apparently that's the thing that we do. Let's look deeper. Understand the problem. That was actually, I was doing it yesterday. Then I realized the result was exactly the same that I used in another presentation. So here is my second-hand slide. Blame Matthias for that anyway. And so if you Google for software developer, you get this stuff. And if you look close, I mean, this is scary. I don't know what all this blue thing is everywhere maybe comes from the blue screen of death, but let's look closer at what this stuff is. This guy is clearly slacking off, just smiling, not doing anything. I'm not actually working. Well, we can see the face of that one. Here, well, that's software engineers, software developers, and then it has to be machinery. It has to be, yeah, that's the perception of what the software developer is in the world. Even worse, look at this. This is just telling something. You have two people telling what you do, and you have no clue. That's a little bit closer to the to the Kim and Donald Trump metaphor, but I'm not done. Thank you. And that is the thing that we are looking at, but there's still something missing. Like, this guy is clearly watching porn. I mean, look at this face. And treated like stupid kids. No, but the most annoying one of all is actually this one. This guy translated knowledge, thinking in bits, zeros and one, and doing all this stuff. That is the perception of what we are doing. What is missing from this picture? I mean, it's always something happening in a room. We're never going outside. Even here, we didn't move from our desk. The business came to tell us what we were supposed to do. We're trying to solve the problem without looking at the problem. No, I don't want to see that. It's just, no, the problem is, no, I just need to see my IDE. That's everything I need to see. No, that's not the right way to understand the problem. That's not the right way to find the solution. But clearly, the solution got to be something like Node.js or Haskell anyway. I don't care what the problem is. I just need that. So I get back to this. Software development is the learning process, but we are not managing it very well. We always get second-hand learning. We are trying to solve a problem that was told by somebody else. And the second problem is try to keep the implementation as close as possible to our understandings. And that was basically the whole idea about the ubiquitous language. Try to make sure there is no friction between the conversation, between our understanding, our conversational modeling, and our implementation. And having had the chance of spending some time with Eric, you realize that this obsession for the language, one, is real. The precision he's using for crafting the words is actually remarkable. But the second thing, this is meaningful. The moment you find a place where a word is precise, has no possible misunderstanding, it just sharpens everything. The conversation is perfect. You talk. The code is doing exactly what you're talking about, and the ambiguity is gone. It's just working like a charm. It's just really, really good. But yes, this is what everybody thinks they are doing. I mean, nobody is intentionally writing an inferior implementation. At least that's what we think. I'm not completely sure about it. I think there's a fundamental flaw somewhere. So everybody here, I mean, even the worst, there's no worst person in a conference, but everybody in this profession is trying to do a good job. So the problem is not being evil. Still, I'm not happy with the overall results, but the problem is not there. So there is something at the root which is probably wrong, and it has to do with our idea of doing the right thing. Who remembers this one? That's not Dr. House. Nobody remembers that. Okay. Andy Hunt and Dave Thomas, this is a dry principle. This is the original definition of the dry principle. And, well, it's funny, nobody remembers that, because for most of us, the dry principle is duplication is evil. Remove duplication at all costs. That's what we do. Oh, these two things are the same thing. Well, let's choose one. Let's reuse the same solution. Let's avoid redundancy. And I would say we forgot one thing, maybe even two here. Every piece of knowledge must have a single, unambiguous, authoritative representation within a system. So there's already something here, which is, what is exactly a system? I mean, if I have more than one system, I can basically do whatever I want, and that's already something we're going to see later. But there's something here which is even more terrifying for me, which is something that was hidden in plain sight, unambiguous. And it was there, unambiguous. And then even somebody in our community, including me, was kind of reacting versus the dry principle because, horrible crimes have been committed following the dry principle, and it was not in the dry principle. The dry principle was okay. They just said unambiguous, but people didn't care. Why this unambiguous thing is important? Because the other hidden ingredient is we're modeling data first. We're looking to the static structure. We're focusing on nouns of things. And usually that's what we do. We expand the scope in order to accommodate new concepts. Oh, we have this new feature. Oh, we need to track also this information with the customer. Oh, yes, I just add another table. Yeah, foreign key, this type of stuff. Or, has many, has one, this type of thing. Then, some time passes. Some years later, you just leave the company cursing the legacy. That's kind of easy. We're going to see how, but basically, there is a connection between the two things. The thing is, focusing on nouns, this type of design won't help. If you have a siloed organization, you ask, everybody agrees what an order is. Of course we do. We're processing orders every day. Do you think we are stupid? Of course we do what an order is. An order is just an order. Or Brexit means Brexit. Just a great way of doing ubiquitous language. And has a customer too. An order has a customer. An order has a price, line item. Everybody agrees that an order has a line item, subtotal, a customer, and a delivery address. Yes, so we have an order. We can share it. No. The perfect recipe to kill your software is talk with many people, model data first. It's just like getting fooled. I mean, you have one dimension, which is behavior, that you're striping away from the picture. It's just like having a three-dimensional reality and looking at it in two dimensions. I mean, from a satellite, I look exactly as tall as you are. No, you're losing details which are really, really relevant. And if you focus on the data first, consciously or unconsciously, you're just wiping out things. Things are looking like exactly the same, but they are not. They change for different reasons. The customer in an order changes if the customer is moving, if the customer is rebranding the company. While, no, it shouldn't be changing in the order. The order should be exactly how it was the moment it was signed off, printed. So the two things, data will be exactly the same data at that moment in time, but the changes will be acting for different reasons in different moments. It is not the same thing. One is the customer now, another thing is the customer at the moment the contract was signed off. And I can go on with examples like this for ages. So that's just the point. But the style is what matters. The style is, we were taught, I guess like everybody in the university, to look at the static structure or class diagrams. Also, you look at this, you find the perfect relationship to model the language of the domain, but you didn't realize that we model one aspect of the domain. We talk with many people trying to find a trade-off, and then we find ourselves modeling something that has nothing to do with the original problem. Even more, nobody would care about that problem now because we created that complexity. We are alone in trying to solve our little private nightmare. No such thing as ubiquitous language would scale, and it's just like we created the mess, we are the only one that can sort it out. Great stuff. So that's a place where we end up quite easily as a consequence of applying these repeated steps. Some people call it a monolith, and then they call it a big ball of mud when they leave the company. And so that is basically the second most important advice, together with the ubiquitous language coming from domain-driven design. try to solve an enterprise problem with a single model. It is just not working. I mean, you can write an address list with a single model, but not something that spans the enterprise. An enterprise is a business. Business has multiple perspectives. It has accounting, it has delivery, it has customer acquisition. You have independent problems. You need independent models. Otherwise, you will make trade-off models, and they are going to fall down. They're going to crack. They're going to collapse. It's not working. So the key idea, saving ideas for domain-driven design, is to, start partitioning the system, start understanding the system independently, talk with as little people as possible. If you talk with only one domain expert, only a single department, only a single problem, you have a higher possibility of having a consistent language and the possibility of solving that problem easily, because it's not a trade-off solution. So instead of finding the best model to solve everything, we are going into finding the best combination of small, simple, independent models to solve simple, independent problems, and finding a way to make them talk. That is basically domain-driven design at the state of the art now, at the conceptual level. Jumping, that's the other reason, maybe, because domain-driven design is getting back into hype nowadays, because everybody's so excited about microservices. Everybody wants to do microservices. It's so cool. And so, I guess envy is a good driver for architectural choices. I want to have microservices too. I need to talk with somebody, with my colleagues at the pub. I mean, everybody's talking about microservices. Me too. That's the thing. But this was a colleague of mine telling the story. He was one of the best software craftsmen in Italy, just saying, like, I spend most of my time now rescuing teams that went microservices over a monolith, only to discover that they're tangled with dependencies, which means, like, they are basically slowing down the release cycles. They need to deliver together so many microservices, because one needs the version of the event to be aligned with this data representation. So they just ended up running one big deployment every 4 weeks, 2 months, 3 months. Well, that was not exactly the idea of microservices, but they said, like, we just take the monolith and we break it in smaller pieces. And oh shit, doesn't really work. And well, that was actually coming from Matthias. The whole story was started from a conversation between me and Matthias. And I was talking with a friend working in a big Italian company, and that was their plan with microservices, going microservices on a shared database. That was probably the mainframe, and that was Matthias' genius. So he's here now at this moment. Well, look at the number of retweets here, just more than 1,000. Yep. So while we're trying to do that, well, looks like how do I tangle this? Looks like, again, the problem is try to understand exactly how to partition a system like this, and it's the fundamental mistakes was well rooted. So conceptual boundaries are not enough if you don't know what a conceptual boundary is. The other thing that started playing a very good role in the last years of domain-driven design is, well, later. Sorry, I don't see the preview. I'm going to be quick on this. Clarification. A bounded context is a language boundary, and define a consistent model around a specific purpose, and managing is not a purpose. If talking about microservice, I need a different color, different notation, but it's a deployment boundary. Micro means as small as possible, and you're not necessarily Netflix. But the moment people realize, okay, so I go microservices, I have bounded context, that's the solution. So microservice is a bounded context. That's the thing. That's probably the most popular sentence in the last days. And well, my answer is no, bingo, no. Just it is not. It is not. Just, I have no idea what a microservice is, but I'm pretty sure it's a bounded context. Well, still I have no idea what a bounded context is. I mean, that's the current status of the discussion in many places, but I'm using Docker. That's the only thing that I know. But so here we're talking about a very fuzzy definition, because bounded context is a fuzzy definition. It's just like many things coming in domain-driven design, it's not exactly clear what it is. And even a microservice has a fuzzy definition, but the temptation of, I don't understand this, I don't understand this, let's make sure at least there's only one thing, so there's only one thing that I don't understand. But I'm just trying to be more explicit. This situation is perfectly legitimate. You have very small microservices, and micro means small, which are part of the same model, the same language. Yeah, that's totally okay. Even this one is totally fine. I mean, nobody would be haunting in your nightmares telling you are not doing microservices right. Just don't call it micro, because this is big. End of the story. Your deployment size is just so much context dependent. You do whatever you want, just don't call it micro anymore. This is big. It's totally fine. The two things are independent. One is deployment, the other is language. Yeah. That's a summary. You're not Netflix. I mean, Netflix is great. You're just running a different company, different infrastructure. Yeah. Still, one thing is clear. In all the microservices community, step by step was clear that we were going into this direction. The best way to partition a system, the best way to discover what the natural boundaries were, the best way to remove ambiguities from the discussion is to get into event-based communication. Events are injecting so much precision in the discovery of the complexity, in the understanding of the business, and removing a lot of the ambiguities that comes with, oh, we have to share the order table, we have to share the customer table. No, you don't have to share, and probably you're doing it for the wrong reason. And probably there's more thing to say, but I only have 5 minutes left. So this is, I think, the best thing that happened to domain-driven design, because I was doing most of the mistakes I was pointing to, but things completely clicked the moment we started thinking SQL REST first, and then event sourcing. Then I started even storming. But the whole idea about domain events being the center of the conversation, of the model, of the implementation, just works damn well. I remember something like 12 years ago, I was reading books about SOA. Oh, there are many strategies for integration. You can do that integration, service integration, integration the presentation layer. There are so many, yes, there are so many different ways to deal with integration. This is just better. End of the story. I don't want to talk about it. The other thing is, it's something that started being the key ingredient. I mean, I don't think we talk about this enough in the DDD community, but the magic of continuous discovery, making experiments, improving the model, is not happening if you're not feeling safe, which means like you need to have a good test environment, you need to have testing place, you need to have sandboxes, you need to be sure that if you're breaking something, the company is not going to sue you, because if it is, if you're creating significant economic damage, you will not experiment, you will not even try to do something better, and you will leave your monolith rot into a big bowl of mud day after day till you're out of business. Because if one of the things that it started to look like a coincidence for me, now I don't think it's a coincidence anymore. I think it's a red line, just a data-first approach plus dry principle, plus you're losing the control. The moment you're abusing of the right principle, you start having more people using the same thing, you start losing safety, you start losing the confidence of, I can change this table. Well, no, you're breaking my build. Well, I need to change this, now you're breaking my build now. Okay, I will stop changing it, and then it just piles up and creates a little difference between what is the system you knew were supposed to build and the system you have, and this is just not good. What happens? Only a few people start knowing the whole story, and And if you can't change the system, because if you have better idea, but you can't put them in practice, you have just two options. Or you leave the company because you want to do a better job, or just reduce your expectation. That's what I mean with getting minionized. I'm not, yes, I will still work here. Yeah, we have a crappy legacy. We're doing a job. I mean, it's Friday, let's have a beer. And not really growing the business. And when safety is gone, no experiments, and then, but if the company is growing, the business is growing, then everything becomes risky. You are becoming a bomb squad, and then finally, somebody's leaving the company, and now, well, the end cherry on the pie, companies like this are having a pretty hard time recruiting. Oh yeah, we're just recruiting developers. We just have a Java-based monolith, but we are thinking about moving to microservices. Well, surprise, job market change, and developers need to go in cool places, and this is not cool anymore. At the company level, it's just like what happens is just as a result of this lack of confidence, we postpone the evolution of critical software. We prevent the organization from getting new feedback. A business is going the way it goes. We are not providing a good service because now that's the enemy aircraft, and we are looking somewhere in the clouds, and it doesn't really work. How long are your iteration? I'm not talking about the deployment iteration. I'm talking about the feedback cycles of the whole company. How quickly can a company learn from their own business? In many large companies, they just stopped learning. They have no idea what the customer wants. And even if they have any idea, what is going to be implemented in 2 years from now because we have a backlog and it's not really working. Suddenly, the organization is dumbed down and blames the IT for everything. The organization is not learning because it takes so much time to run experiments. So, yes, welcome. And the IT is going to be the blame for everything. The thing is, there's a thin red line, and it's not a coincidence. At the beginning, I thought it was. Yeah, bad luck. They had this, and they also had this. They are the same thing. And if there is one single root, is a misinterpretation of DRIVE principle and data-first approach in enterprise software. Well, good luck. Domain-driven design is just the opposite. So takeaways, and maybe even on time. High-value enterprise software needs a special approach. You can't solve everything with an aspirin, and well, CRUD is just cheap, cheap and good for a given set of problems. But if you're hitting the problems which is blocking your company in the last years, do you really think that starting another CRUD project we're going to make that solution simple? And wrapping CRUDs around microservices is not going to be the solution. It was exactly the same mistakes that was done with SOA 10 years later. And no, it's not that solution. The problem is forget about the data first. Look to the events first. Just provide a way better understanding to the problem. And this still... second thing, I'm actually missing the slide because they were finished after I'm going to finish this talk. And second thing is safety. It looks like it's a missing ingredient, but the learning, the experimentation, this thing is only happening if you feel like safe enough to make the experiment, to make the call. But the third thing about what is the reason why DDD matters now, I think maybe there's a kind of deeper reason, maybe even simpler. Maybe the overall reason is, after all these years, maybe it's simple. Maybe we were just right. That is the thing. End of the talk.